South Korean barbarians are at the Gamergate.
And can Blizzard make Overwatch players better people?
Microsoft wants you to have all the pixels your little heart desires.
And is Twitch cursed?
I'm Sam Chen.
And I'm Paul Mooney.
All these stories and more Zenyatta ultimates than a competitive Overwatch tournament. Stick around, you're watching the Nerdy News Roundup.
We begin the show with Counter-Strike, the original esport, when esports was a couple guys sit in their parents' basements with a Switch and a dream. The most recent changes to professional matches limits teams to 5 players, leaving their coaches to cheer from the sidelines. Sam, tournament boycotts are buzzing around the Twitter sphere. Are coaches really ruining the sport?
No, I mean, I think you need coaches to make esports what it is, right? I mean, every other sport, you have your coach.
Yeah.
I mean, I get it. What they're really saying is, we don't like the fact that there's a 6-person like shot calling during the game that's in the middle of all of it. And so I can see in one sense not having them so involved, but the reality is it's balanced for either side. I mean, it's not like one guy has a coach and one guy doesn't.
True.
So I think this is an overreaction on Valve's part. I think all the other sports have coaches, team esports have coaches. I have a feeling that they're going to reverse this.
Yeah, well, my question is, why did they get rid of them in the first place? Like, what was the point? Were they that much of a distraction? So they're saying, oh, the other coach is overbearing ours, and I feel like
No, they were literally saying, like, they just didn't like having someone else that was managing the game calling the shots that wasn't a player.
That makes no sense, because like you pointed out, all sports, or at least most sports, have coaches. So I think taking the coaches out of the equation kind of takes away from the legitimacy of esports as a sporting event in the first place. So I think it's a bad move, and I think they should definitely reverse it.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. Like, I was watching Overwatch, because the Atlantic Championship, or the Atlantic Showdown was this weekend. I mean, their coaches are there. They're not the shot caller in the game, because it probably is too hard for them to keep up to do that, but
still, like, they need, I think being there and having them take notes and stuff like that to tell you, oh, this is what you did right, this is where you kind of faltered. Like, that's the whole point of having a coach for player development.
Yep.
That's why they exist in the first place. So,
agreed. Yeah. Virtual reality, augmented reality, and now merged reality. Intel announced that it was getting into the VR landscape with a wireless and controllerless headset dubbed Project Alloy, featuring built-in RealSense cameras which help you interpret your hands in virtual space. Paul, we've seen a lot of Intel tech demos at CES and even at Best Buy. Should we expect to see them in our living room anytime soon?
I'm not sure they'll be in our living room immediately, but I think we're just exploring the beginning parts of like what virtual reality and augmented reality will actually do for consumers, not specifically gamers in that statement. I think there might be a point where companies like Intel, obviously Sony's got theirs coming out, but they were, even when Sony came through for a former employer that I worked with that shall remain nameless, they were already saying we're exploring things beyond standard gaming practices to develop this technology into. So I can see companies like Intel kind of going in that same approach. One of the things I'd commented on was like, what if you could do like a virtual house tour for a house that's not in your state or something like that. So
yeah, I mean, I think the one thing I take away from this is Intel's a hardware company. They're trying to manufacture a hardware device that achieves certain amounts of technological improvement, right? Having real wireless VR, I mean, assuming that the battery technology is there and everything like that.
I doubt it will be.
But even then, it's still very cool because you're not super tethered in. Like, I mean, it could be their way of saying, you know what, every 2 hours, take a break. Okay, fine. It's not unrealistic if there's like an interchangeable battery. But I like the fact that they're taking it out of that, and I think their RealSense technology is actually a ton better than what Magic Leap's ever going to come up with. I mean, we've walked the CES show floor before, and they have all these big sensor arrays set up where like you can detect 20 different people, and they all can play with the game. So I think it's pretty cool. I don't know if it's going to surpass anything because at least to my understanding, there's not a ton of great protocols in the VR space yet.
Well, even if it's just a proof of concept thing, it's still a good way to enter the market space for them. I mean, if indeed virtual reality is going to be a thing in the future, which it might, it's probably a good idea for them to start, at least starting to come up with some kind of development scheme or plan for it.
Yeah.
It's sensible. Overwatch's first competitive season is officially wrapped up, and changes are already afoot before Season 2 starts in September. Improvements to tiers, sudden death mechanics, and even adjustments for players who don't understand how decimals work. Blizzard has been drinking from the fire hose of community feedback. Sam, with the pace of changes to the game, can Blizzard keep up with fan hype?
I think Blizzard's showing that they really wanted to take esports very seriously when it came to Overwatch. I think that's the thing that really set Overwatch aside from, I think, other games that are in the esports realm now, is that it was very much designed for it, right? And so in that sense, I feel like they have to have adapted themselves in the back end to be able to keep up with that. So I think the fact that they're listening to the community a lot and they're actually pushing out new content, updates, balancing on a regular basis, I don't think that's anything that they're not going to be able to keep up with.
Yeah, me either. I think their response is appropriate for a company that has as much money as Blizzard does. Let's be honest, they are the piggy bank in terms of games like this.
Right.
Things that the community will obviously picked up very quickly, and they've made a kind of environment that seems to be productive. But, like, I don't see why they wouldn't do something like this, because they've got the cash for it. They can make any changes they want. If things don't go the way they want, okay, we'll just roll back and we'll do something else. People are still playing WoW, for God's sake. I think at the end of the day, they've learned over the years with the games that they put out how to manage things like this, where they're not making horrible tweaks to games that are just going to break it overall. So I think what they're doing is good, and I think they'll be able to keep up with it as long as the game is running.
Yeah, I mean, the best corollary I have to where Blizzard is now in the cycle of esports is basically Magic the Gathering.
Right.
So back when Magic was, probably like Tempest Block, there was not a lot of balance to the game, and sometimes they would release a card that would break the game, then they'd have to basically patch it, basically change the rules of how that card works or ban certain cards so the interactions wouldn't break. Now in their development cycle, they're much smoother. That doesn't happen on a regular basis. I think Blizzard's going to see the same thing. Maybe this first season there were more changes because it was new. In the future, I think the balancing of either new maps or new characters is just going to be run-of-the-mill for them.
Yeah,
no problem.
Best in biz with fan development. I think Blizzard does a really good job with that sort of thing.
Yep. Pachinkonami is attempting to keep the Metal Gear franchise alive for a little bit longer. Slated for release in 2017, the company announced Metal Gear Survive, a co-op survival game based on an alternative timeline from Metal Gear Solid 5. Paul, with Kojima gone and pachinko parlors not a thing yet in North America, will this game be a hit?
I don't think it'll be a hit with traditional Metal Gear fans, but if the price point is right, I can still see some people buying it. Will it be a good game? I don't know. I feel like this genre has been kind of done to death at this point, and I really feel like they're just reusing the assets from Metal Gear, and they're just going to slap a game play that people seem to like, and hopefully they'll churn out some cash. It feels like a cash grab.
Yeah, I mean, I think the one thing that's interesting about this to me is that it is supposed to be 4-player online co-op survival game, more than shooters or anything else out there right now. I mean, I know No Man's Sky is now, it is a survival game. We've seen early access games for things like We Happy Few. Like, survival genre is alive and kicking, perhaps even oversaturated.
Yeah.
But not necessarily in a co-op sense. So maybe there's a chance here.
I guess, but I mean, there was a co-op it was a couch co-op, but they had Resident Evil, kind of the same thing already. People are still playing that. There's still people who are playing Left 4 Dead, which is, albeit a little bit old, but still, there's a sizable chance that something like that will come back. So, is it filling a game space? Maybe, but are people who are Metal Gear fans going to see this for what it is? Most likely, and I'd almost go as far to say definitely. And there's going to be an outcry of fan rage that comes with the launch of this game too. So,
yeah, I kind of impressed that they actually even did anything with the franchise, to be honest. But you're right. I think the genre is, I don't think they're going to ever bring anything new to the genre, either Metal Gear or survival games. No. And so, they're going to print some money. And
it might be something to do when it goes on sale. Like, if it starts at a range of like $30 to $40, which is, they said it's not going to be a full price game, goes on sale in a couple months for, $20. I'm not saying I'm going to pick it up, but I assure you there will be people who will do that. So,
do you think this is just par for the course for Konami at this point, being not really a gaming company?
I think they said, hey, projections say that this genre is popular. We have all these assets that are unused. Money, do it. That's probably what happened. I mean, verbatim. So
He was there. He was there, people. He was
I,
there.
I still love your Pachinko machines, Konami, and if you'd like to sponsor us, I'd be open for that.
Go team.
It's time for a break where we pay the bills and keep our survival game protagonists from starving.
When we come back, Xbox wants to usher in an era of 4K gaming without asking for an arm and a leg. Will this flight of fancy inevitably crash into the ground? Stay tuned. You're watching the Nerdy News Roundup. This week's sponsor we wish we had is NV Energy. You might be wondering why a video gaming news show would be sponsored by a utility, and your confusion would be well founded. We live in Las Vegas, and Las Vegas is hot in the summer. In order to keep the lights on in the studio and to keep Paul and I from sweating more than one bucket per show, we need electricity. So if you know anyone at NV Energy, tell them we sent you and beg them to give us some money, or an AC unit that runs on Twitch bits. And for our main story tonight, Microsoft's quest to be the very best continues. And what could be better than more pixels? In an interview with DualShockers, Xbox game marketing head Aaron Greenberg shed some light on the goals of Project Scorpio, the next iteration of the console line. Greenberg stated, "To be able to bring 6 teraflops of GPU power to the console space is a massive amount of power. We're confident that we'll be able to deliver true 4K gaming with that, and that performance power is going to bring great games to our fans in the console market." Game journalists were quick to speculate that the comments, which suggested would bring Scorpio to life, scaling it for a really big audience, meant we'd be seeing a sub 1K console capable of delivering more than 8 million pixels to your living room TV. Paul, Greenberg suggested Scorpio would be a very high-end premium product. Does that description fit the wallets of console gamers?
Not if what they're saying is true exactly, because obviously what they're talking about can't be achieved.
Well, it can be achieved, just not
in the price realm
Yeah.
that they're discussing. There's no way they're going to get something that's affordable to the average consumer at a reasonable price that's expected from consoles.
Right. I mean, I read the piece, and then I went through and read the interview, and I don't know why anyone thinks for a large audience means sub 1K. I mean, there's a large audience of people who own MacBooks. None of them are sub 1K. Or maybe the Air is now, but like, generally speaking, they're not.
No,
I mean,
they're expensive.
And those are high-end premium products.
Right, but the difference is this is an entertainment device. Like MacBook, I can use it for entertainment. I can use it for work. I can use it for design. I can do things around. Like this has multi-function capabilities. This is something that's going to be used for probably watching video and or playing video games. So
Hopefully playing video games.
But
See, here's where I think it gets interesting, right? Because let's forego this idea that it would be sub 1K. Let's say it's more in a realistic realm of 1,500, maybe as high as 1,800 if you up-spec the graphics to truly play 4K content at 30 FPS, maybe 60, but probably 30. Once you get into that space, it is kind of like a PC.
Yes.
Like they're basically building a PC, right?
True. And at that point, you have to argue, like, why wouldn't you just buy a PC if you're in that kind of money realm?
But I mean, maybe this is part of Microsoft's idea of like this slow shift to the universal Windows platform, to getting people comfortable with, getting console gamers comfortable with the idea that all of their content will be the same for a keyboard and mouse type setup as it is for a console with a controller. I mean, I could easily see this being maybe what they suggested in this idea of a modular console, right?
True.
Which we heard about earlier this year, and we haven't heard much since. I mean, do you think that's possible for where Scorpio's going?
I mean, there's no way to say it's not possible because there's not enough solid details coming out about it currently as it stands. So it could be something where they're developing along those lines, but it's still conjecture. It's hard to say.
Because I mean, I think the thing is they've lost this generation of the console war.
Clearly.
And the original Xbox One is not being slated for any sort of VR content, right? The S, maybe. The Scorpio probably definitely is. But I can't see that their vision of ending console generations comes with a high-end spec Xbox. It's got to come with something that gets people to want to use PCs or anything that's infinitely upgradable to play the same content that they're enjoying on their console now.
True.
If they don't do that, then they're going to keep losing.
Or they've got to go further and provide something more, which would be something like VR or AR or something like that. if you're going to put a high-end tag on something like this, you either have to deliver that same experience at a level that's either as good or not better, if not better quality than what you're experiencing currently, or you have to deliver something else, like you said, VR, AR, something maybe we haven't heard of yet, but I'm not sure what that could be.
Yeah, I mean, I think at this point there's so few details about Scorpio that the speculation is just totally rampant. I mean, there is a chance that they could drop a, high-end $800 console that can sort of support 4K.
So I think half-assing something like that isn't probably the best idea. You don't want to have people like, oh, it's 4K, but it's 10 frames a second. Like, that's not going to be appealing for people. People like PC gamers especially are very hard on consoles for only being at 30, and they say, my eyes can't handle going down to 30 when I've been used to playing at 60 for so long. So, like, quality graphics versus gameplay. I honestly have to side with gameplay before I have quality resolution or anything behind that.
I mean, do you think this is actually almost a step back in the realm of Microsoft, where back to the days of just like, let's just upscale content and let's let's half-ass the game experience? Because I think they're coming out and saying, like, we're going to put the gamer at the center of this. We're designing this for gamers, for them to be able to use this. Do you think they don't understand what that even means?
They may have lost the narrative at some point. That's definitely a possibility. I mean, you saw what happened when they introduced the Xbox One and was all about how it interacts with your TV. And they were obviously taking things away from the gamers at that point, which is, I mean, part of the draw why Sony was like, hot damn, we made this for gamers. Like, and that's where the first thing we're going to have, and Blockbuster. They went out of the park with it. So are they still in that kind of realm? I'm sure their think tank probably has people like that. Okay. The TV thing didn't work this time, but now we've got this thing that's going to get everyone in the household to be around this new system. So I think those voices aren't going to be silenced or deafened in that company at any point. But the overall point of the exercise, I think, is the fact that Microsoft needs to do something, because their gaming market for console gaming, it's kind of stagnant. I mean, the S did really well. It sold out pretty quick. But they're not really growing their audience at the level that they need to be competitive with Sony.
Yeah, I mean, I could see this being that premium high-end product in the $1,500 to $800 range with kind of a limited run and just really hardcore fans who really want to play. And maybe it's really only going to be like the PC-compatible content that's already able to be played at 4K that you're going to see any life into that.
It's possible. But again, that's a very niche audience, and I'd be very surprised at what number they had that released for.
Right, and that's the important part, right, is the more niche it is, the less likely it is to actually end console generation.
It's true, because, well, I guess there has to be a start somewhere, because I mean, that discussion's been going on with both companies. But I guess this could be their starting point, but until I actually see some more clarity and transparency from Microsoft about what is actually going to happen, I can't really come to any final conclusions about it.
Is Microsoft really going to bring true 4K gaming into every living room? Let us know if you think you'll be able to afford to board this hype train in the comments below. Can't get enough of nerd culture? Then check out all the great content we have on the Nerdy Nights YouTube channel. Join me and Eric on Couch Co-op Confidential as we stream couch co-op games. Currently, we're attacking the darkness with our magic missile towers to keep out the ogres in Dungeon Defenders. Mike and I have picked up the stick of truth and are saving South Park from the Drow Owls. Check out Let's Play Podcast for a whole new way to Let's Play. And don't forget to check out Board Nights, where we try to play board games, usually unsuccessfully. Click the links below for all this great content and more.
And now for everyone's favorite segment of the week, we turn to our lightning round where we answer the age-old question, does this matter? When things are absolutely free, we actually mean we like money. No Man's Sky boss Sean Murray rolled back previous comments about no paid DLC, saying he was perhaps naive. With 18 quintillion planets, Sam, do we really need an expansion?
Yeah, I mean, we don't need an expansion. But the thing is, I look at No Man's Sky here and say, it's been super popular. They've actually made their money back, obviously. I mean, sure, it can't live up to that hype train that it was on, but they sold games, right? And so the natural evolution of selling games is to try to profit more off the franchise. I'm not surprised at all. I don't think this really matters because No Man's Sky fanboys are crazy. Like, they're like, oh, more content, DLC. Yeah, here.
Sure. True. They've already thrown the money at the screen. Now they're just looking for more money. They've got their hands cocked. So I don't think it really matters because the people who are going to buy it, they're going to buy it anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of disappointed because I think it was an indication that Sean Murray's like heart was in the right place when he was like no paid DLC. The problem is his heart wasn't in his wallet, and that's where Sony wants his heart to be.
Yeah, I'm sure the executives came down. What are you talking about? No paid deal? Are you crazy?
Get back out there.
Get back to work.
Volkswagen might cheat at admission tests, but they definitely don't cheat when it comes to corporate security. The German automaker sent out a mass email to its 70,000 employees informing them they are not allowed to have Pokemon Go installed in their phones. Paul, can we kiss our dreams of seeing a Pikachu-themed VW bug goodbye?
No, you can still see that happen. That's definitely a thing. But I don't think this matters in the grand scheme of things. I just think it's Volkswagen saying, put the phones down and get back to work. It's not like we make things that transport people in their lives. Oh, wait, it is. So, sure. Are they being maybe a little overzealous by saying for everyone, it's banned? I mean, if it's going to be true for some, I guess it should be true for all. So
yeah, I mean, I think this matters insofar as, companies are kind of trying to catch up with this, right? Because at least for the first couple of weeks, they had employees who were like just doing laps around the office,
right.
Trying to catch up. They were like, get back to fucking work.
Right, no, and the last offices I've worked at, and my current one, like, it's been that way. It's very disruptive. So, I mean, they're just taking steps to curb that sort of behavior while at work. I'm sure there just applies to company phones or something like that. It's probably not their personal phones where they're like, you can't have this in your house at all. Like, I don't think it's like 1930 anymore.
Yeah, but if any company would do it, it would be a German automaker.
True enough. The princess might be in another castle, but that doesn't mean South Korean gamers are princes. The Gamergate controversy got more ammunition as Nexon, the producers of the online game Closers, fired one of their game's voice actresses after she tweeted a photograph of herself wearing a shirt, "Girls do not need a prince." Sam, is this more a reflection of gaming or of South Korea?
It's definitely more of a reflection of South Korea. I mean, I think this does matter because it starts to highlight a more important point in a lot of this kind of gaming world, which is, we live in the US, we take the idea of feminism and the fact that people support it for granted. We look across the pond and we see that, maybe it's not so clear-cut. I think the biggest thing about this t-shirt wasn't that what it said. It was the fact that it supported a feminist organization. And so in that sense, I think, the fact that it's kind of made news here, that people are talking about it now, that maybe this will help shift in a more positive direction. Because, I mean, I think anyone could care less about a voice actress, like, wearing a t-shirt.
Yeah, I definitely think it's just a regional specific thing. And, why would you care that she's wearing clothes? But again, we have a level of freedom that...
Well, yeah, but I mean, in that context, they cared because a lot of their fans were like, no
true.
Feminism in this video
No, I
game.
mean, those are the people I'm talking about. Like, those people specifically, why is this such a big deal for them? But again, we take that level of conversation to, we've had, I wouldn't say tolerance, but it's much more accepted here. So I think it's definitely a reflection of just Korea specifically.
Sure. Going legit isn't easy, and CSGO Lounge has finally come to terms with that. The largest Counter-Strike betting site is no longer taking bets. Despite their attempt to get a gambling license, the site pulled the functionality for depositing virtual skins and items for placing bets. Paul, Lounge did help make CSGO into the esport it is today. Will this have a larger impact than Valve anticipated?
I don't think so, because I think the gambling portion will just evolve into something else.
Sure.
But the thing about gambling, like, the more disenfranchised you try to make it for people who are in that audience, the more they're going to do it. It's like prohibition. Like, you saw how well that worked out. Oh, alcohol is illegal. Let's all go to Canada and get Canadian whiskey or Canadian Mist. It's going to be kind of the same thing. Lounge may suffer a little bit, but I think that audience is still kind of already installed.
See, so that's where I'll come back and say I think this does matter. I think, Counter-Strike as an e-sport in the context of everything else, I think it's been clinging on for a while compared to how massive some of the other games are right now and what kind of presence they have. I mean, Counter-Strike's a classic. People are still going to play it, but maybe you needed that other thing to make it interesting.
That's a good point. Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of like betting it's kind of like boxing.
Right. betting or football, betting on any kind of sport, basically.
Right. I mean, there's a part of that makes that a little bit more interesting. I think gamers aren't going to be happy with it.
But I still don't think that environment is going to completely disappear, though. So I think that appeal will still be there. It just won't be in the same format that people recognized in the past. So it matters in a way because it does affect a specific community. But in the long run, the nature of Counter-Strike won't change dramatically. It's just going to alter its color a little bit. Chameleon skin, whatever you want to call it. Blizzard is tired of your poor sportsmanship, and they've got a plan to make you change whether you like it or not. In the latest patch, players typing GG easy or good game, easy win, found themselves saying other things like, well played, I salute you all, or it's past my bedtime, please don't tell my mommy. Sam, is Blizzard's sportsmanship paternalism a good thing?
Yeah, I mean, I think in the grand scheme of where Blizzard is, it doesn't matter, but I think it does matter for the gaming community. And I think we've seen a lot of different companies kind of come into this idea of trying to make gamers nicer.
Yeah.
In subtle ways, right? Like, so Blizzard's already done something like this with Hearthstone, so I guess it's not too surprising that they're doing this with Overwatch. And we've even seen Microsoft do that with Cortana, where like, if you're just negative to Cortana, she'll be like, nope, not gonna do that. Don't swear at me. So I think it's important because I think gamers, like a lot of the times, do live their lives in some sort of isolated bubble, even if that bubble's as big as the internet. And so even subtle little things that kind of make them behave a little bit better is probably better.
Yeah, I think it's better to make the effort to do it, and even if the results are like nil or minimal, it's still something. Like, I think some efforts need to be taken to curb kind of negative behavior. I mean, there are children playing these things in many cases. And I know people are like, oh, well, if it's going to be that kind of environment, you shouldn't let your kids on. I don't think that's a fair point, because video games started with, I mean, children in the first place, or for the most part. I mean, obviously, there's always been that, adult built-in base, which I'm assuming like the teenage to 20-somethings or people who are generally saying that's probably even older. But still, if you're trying to curb behavior that would influence like an 8-year-old or something like that.
Yep.
I think it's a good move.
Yep. Twitch isn't just a scrappy startup anymore, and nothing is better proof than buying another company. The streaming service has just closed a deal to acquire Curse, a voice-over IP system that provides users with better voice chat and mod support for popular games. Paul, is Twitch just trying to buy viewers, or do they have something else up their sleeve?
I think they're just expanding their business. I think they've grown to a point where they have to venture out and find other things to do, or other services that are kind of related to theirs, and just see how they can kind of put them into their fold. Obviously, we talked about last week how Microsoft is now trying to get into the same sort of deal. And I mean, as the competition grows, you don't want to be late to the party where you have to be reactionary. You have to be proactive for something like this. So I think it's a good move on their part.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I think it matters because it subtly hints at the idea of what streaming could end up becoming, right? At this point, it is, as much as chat is important in streaming, it is still a little of a one-way street when it comes to that. Integrating this into an idea that maybe, we can, instead of like having to do multi-Twitch to see 4 players playing together, maybe, we'll see a system where, you'll have your chat, I'll have my chat, we both log into the system,
right,
and you can just interactively switch, and we still hear both players. That could happen. That could be interesting.
That would be really cool, actually. Because I mean, I do watch a few channels that have groups of people who are playing together.
Yeah.
And it's like I hate having to switch back and forth between their streams just to see like exactly who's doing what. So if they had some kind of iteration that could make that process easier and make it more watchable, I'm all on board.
Yeah, I mean, I think even when I watch like competitive Overwatch, they do have that spectator mode, which is kind of nice, and they'll have commentators. But I would much rather just be able to switch between 6 characters on the team and listen to their party chat.
Yeah.
Like, that would be so much more entertaining for me.
Definitely.
So maybe that's in the pipeline.
Could be. At least Twitch is doing something, which I think is overall a good thing, and I think that does matter.
Yeah. As the show comes to a close, it's time for Meme of the Week. This week's meme comes to us courtesy of Overwatch and throwing your money at the screen. I mean emotes. Some of my favorites are this one of Symmetra, just pulling up a seat during the middle of a battle. Or this one of Lucio, having a knee-slapping good time. I wonder if McCree told a funny joke. Or this one, the internet adapted of Junkrat lounging around, posing for starving art majors. Finally, the best one of them all, Diva gets her game on as Blizzard fully embraces Gremlin Diva in all her Doritos and Mountain Dew snacking goodness. If you have any ideas for next week's meme of the week, be sure to tweet us at nerdy_nights. And that's it for this week's Nerdy News Roundup. Don't let us go the way of CSGO coaches. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe.
I'm Paul Mooney.
And I'm Sam Chen.
Join us again next week, because the last thing the world needed was another nerdy news show, but you still tuned in anyways.